me, I'm stuck in the worst traffic and I've got to get to work.
The lights dim. A heartbeat of drums fills the arena. Steady, confident, alive. Then, from the shadows, he appears. Usher Raymond IV, a man who once made the whole world dance. Every step is perfection. Every note a confession. The crowd screams his name, but behind the shades hides something deeper. A man who has lived through fame, fire, and redemption. How did a boy from Chattanooga, Tennessee, raised by a single mother and a dream, become the king of R&B? And what did he lose on the road to greatness? This is not just the story of fame. It's the story of a soul, tested, broken, and reborn through music. From gospel choirs to Grammy stages, from love songs to heartbreak headlines, Usher's journey isn't about perfection. It's about survival. Because sometimes, to find your true voice, you have to lose everything first. Before the fame, before the sold-out tours, there was just a small boy with a voice that could silence a room. Usher Raymond IV was born on October 14, 1978, in Dallas, Texas, but his roots were in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a town of quiet streets, gospel churches, and simple dreams. His mother, Jonetta Patton, worked multiple jobs and carried a single belief, that her son was destined for something greater. His father, Usher Raymond III, had left when he was barely a year old, leaving behind an ache that music would one day fill. In the small church of St. Elmo, Usher first sang before a crowd. He was only 6. The choir director remembered him as a voice too big for his body. Each Sunday, the boy with shining eyes stood before the congregation, trembling at first, then soaring, his voice echoing against the wooden walls like a prayer. But life wasn't easy. Money was short, opportunities even shorter. Jonetta kept her son disciplined. No distractions, no excuses. She told him, "If you want something, sing for it." And he did. Everywhere. At school, on corners, in talent shows, in living rooms. When Usher was 12, Jonetta made a choice that would change everything. She packed their belongings and moved the family to Atlanta, chasing a dream neither of them could afford, but both believed in. In the heart of the city, surrounded by hip-hop, R&B, and ambition, Usher's voice began to find its rhythm, and soon destiny would find him too, in front of cameras, judges, and an audience that would never forget his name. Atlanta in the early 1990s, a city alive with rhythm. Every street corner hummed with music, every club pulsed with ambition. And somewhere in that energy, a 12-year-old boy was chasing a dream his mother refused to let die. After moving from Chattanooga, Jonetta Patton enrolled Usher in talent shows across the city. He sang, he danced, he learned how to own a stage long before he was old enough to drive. Then came Star Search, the national TV competition that had birthed so many young stars. Usher didn't win, but that night, one important pair of eyes was watching. L.A. Reid, co-founder of LaFace Records. A call came soon after. At just 14, Usher signed his first record deal. It was the dream, or so it seemed. His debut album, Usher, 1994, produced by Sean "Diddy" Combs, was meant to launch him into superstardom. But the world wasn't ready, and neither was he. The album struggled commercially, and puberty changed his voice mid-production. Critics labeled him another teenage act who wouldn't last. For most kids, that would have been the end. But not for Usher. He spent the next few years in quiet determination, training, recording, rebuilding. And when his voice returned, it was stronger, richer, filled with grit and maturity beyond his years. In 1997, producer Jermaine Dupri took him under his wing and crafted the album My Way. It was smooth, bold, and irresistible, a statement of who he truly was. With hits like You Make Me Wanna and Nice and Slow, Usher wasn't just back. He had arrived. The boy who once sang for hope had become the man who sang for the world. By the late 1990s, Usher wasn't just a rising star. He was the star. His second album, My Way, sold millions, and his smooth voice, sharp choreography, and confident smile turned him into the new face of R&B. But 8701 changed everything. Released in 2001, it was the moment Usher went from hitmaker to icon. Songs like You Remind Me and You Got It Bad became anthems of love and heartbreak, earning him 2 Grammy Awards and solidifying his position as the king of R&B. He wasn't following trends, he was setting them. Then, in 2004, he released Confessions, an album so raw, so personal it shook the industry. It wasn't just a record, it was a revelation. The lyrics spoke of love, temptation, guilt, and pain. And the world listened. Yeah, exploded onto the charts, dominating radio stations across the globe. Burn and Confessions Part 2 revealed the emotional depth behind the superstar persona. The album sold over 20 million copies worldwide, becoming one of the best-selling R&B albums in history. At 26, Usher stood at the top of the world. He had the fame, the fortune, the fans, everything he had dreamed of as a boy in Chattanooga. But behind the flawless choreography and the million-dollar smile, the pressure was mounting. The spotlight that once felt warm began to burn. Every move, every relationship, every whisper was magnified under the lens of fame. And as the music played louder, the silence inside him grew deeper. The boy who once sang for hope was now a man performing for survival. And somewhere beneath the glittering lights of success, a quiet storm was beginning to form. At the height of his success, it seemed nothing could touch Usher. He was rich, adored, and unstoppable, the golden boy of R&B. But behind closed doors, life was unraveling. In 2007, Usher shocked fans when he married Tameka Foster, his longtime stylist. The media turned on him instantly. Headlines painted her as controlling, manipulative, and unfit for the superstar. Fans accused her of changing him. The fairy tale quickly became a storm. Then tragedy struck. In 2009, their 11-year-old son, Keeley, was killed in a boating accident on Lake Lanier. The news shattered Usher. The man who could command a stadium with one note now couldn't find the strength to sing at all. Soon after, the marriage collapsed. A bitter divorce followed, alongside a painful custody battle. Every tear, every argument, every court document was splashed across the tabloids. As if grief wasn't enough, new headlines surfaced. Lawsuits, accusations, and relentless rumors about his private life. The public that once worshipped him now turned against him. Cameras followed him not to the stage, but to the courthouse. The same reporters who once praised his charm now dissected his silence. For the first time in his career, Usher wasn't in control of the story. He was the story, and as the noise grew louder, the man behind the music began to disappear. Fame had built him. Pain was now breaking him. The king of R&B had fallen, and the world watched every second of his descent. In the years that followed, Usher disappeared from the spotlight. The man once known for commanding stages and charming millions vanished into silence, grieving, questioning, rebuilding. But legends don't stay quiet forever. When he returned, it wasn't with arrogance or glitter. It was with truth. In 2010, Usher released Raymond vs. Raymond, not just an album, but a confession. Each track was a window into his soul, a man confronting his mistakes, his pain, and his search for peace. The album topped charts, earned him another Grammy, and reminded the world, the king still had a voice. Yet something had changed. He was no longer performing to impress, he was performing to heal. In interviews, his words carried a new humility. "I learned that success means nothing if you lose yourself," he said softly. "I had to find me again." He began mentoring a new generation, including a young Canadian singer named Justin Bieber, whom he guided from obscurity to stardom. Through mentoring, Usher found redemption, shaping others while redefining himself. He also took his time to reconnect with what mattered: fatherhood, faith, and authenticity. He spoke openly about therapy, self-reflection, and the courage to be vulnerable, topics few male artists of his era ever dared to discuss. Slowly, the narrative changed. No longer the headline of scandal, he became a symbol of endurance, proof that even after the fire, the soul can sing again. When Usher stepped back on stage, the cheers sounded different. They weren't for the perfection of his performance. They were for the man who had survived. Usher's legacy isn't measured only in awards or record sales. It's in impact: over 80 million records sold, 8 Grammy Awards, dozens of chart-topping singles. But beyond the numbers lies something far greater: a sound, a spirit, a movement. Usher didn't just sing R&B, he redefined it. He fused gospel emotion, pop precision, and hip-hop swagger into something timeless. Before him, R&B was smooth. After him, it had rhythm, danger, and soul. Artists like Chris Brown, Ne-Yo, Trey Songz, Justin Timberlake, and The Weeknd all trace their style back to him. From the falsettos to the footwork. And through mentorship, he gave the industry its next generation. None more famous than Justin Bieber, who once called Usher "my big brother in music." His influence extended far beyond sound. He brought confidence to vulnerability, proving that a man could be powerful, emotional, and graceful all at once. He showed that R&B wasn't just about romance, it was about honesty. Even decades later, when "Yeah" plays in a club or "You Got It Bad" echoes on the radio, the energy feels eternal. Because Usher didn't just make hits, he made history. He gave a generation its rhythm. And in return, the world crowned him, not just as a performer, but as a legend. Today, Usher stands not as a flawless superstar, but as a man who has made peace with his past. The stage is still his home, but it no longer defines him. He's a father, a mentor, and a survivor of the very machine that once nearly broke him. He's traded paparazzi flashes for quiet mornings, meditation, and time with his children. He often says, "The greatest performance you'll ever give is the one you give to your own life." Through the years, he's spoken openly about growth, therapy, and forgiveness. Not as weakness, but as strength. He admits there was a time he was driven by fear. Fear of fading, of failing, of being forgotten. But somewhere along the way, he learned that legacy isn't about how loud the world cheers, but how deeply your story moves it. When Usher returned to the stage for his Las Vegas residency, fans saw something new. A man no longer chasing perfection, but celebrating presence. Each performance was smoother, freer, not rehearsed but lived. The boy from the church choir had finally come full circle. He no longer needed to prove he was the king of R&B. He just needed to be Usher. Because the truest victory isn't found in fame or forgiveness, it's found in the peace that comes when you finally learn to love yourself again. From a small church in Chattanooga to the grandest stages on earth, Usher's story has always been more than music. It's a testimony of faith, loss, and rebirth. He rose faster than anyone expected, fell harder than anyone deserved, and still found the strength to stand again. Because greatness isn't about never falling. It's about rising every single time you do. For decades, his songs made the world move. But beneath every beat was a message about love, truth, and the beauty of imperfection. He showed us that even kings bleed, that even legends get lost, and that redemption is possible when you dare to face your reflection. Today, as the lights dim and the crowd chants his name, Usher smiles, not as a man chasing fame, but as one who finally understands peace, because the crown he wears now isn't made of gold, it's made of grace, and that, more than anything, is why his music will live forever.